Now, what's very interesting is that everything has flip-flopped since the beginning when Trump first came into office. And while he was running for president and while he started his first presidency back in 2016, the media was building a narrative, and I believe they thought they had this incredible power to blame everything on Trump, those people who are working with Trump, and people would just believe it. And what we've been seeing is that the strategy that the mainstream media, the deep state, have been using, well, it is backfiring on them because they didn't expect what was going to come next. Because remember, throughout this entire period of time, they were always in control. The central bank was always in control. And they never had an individual or a bunch of individuals in office who would fight back against them. They never experienced this, never even knew what it was like. The central bank, they knew what it was like, but this is going way back in time, before 1913, back to Andrew Jackson, back to the founding fathers. And if we move forward to the present day, they really hadn't had anyone to really counter their arguments. No one even mentioned the Federal Reserve. No one really mentioned the IMF or the BIS. Pretty much it stays out of the news. No one really realizes what's going on. Even when we had the crash in 2008, they didn't mention that much about the Federal Reserve. They pretty much blamed it on the people. Well, they shouldn't have been taking out mortgages like they did. It's all the people's fault. It was speculators in the market. Everything was fine. Everything was great. The Federal Reserve, their agenda was perfect. Nothing was wrong. Remember, the Federal Reserve back then told us that we were not heading into a recession during the year we entered the recession. And then they gave currency to all the big banks. And then other currency went to other places, which we're not allowed to know where that went. And they created a lot of currency. They stimulated the economy. And of course, it was all for the betterment of the people. Was it really? No. Because we can see many years later, things are rapidly falling apart. And they never thought there'd be someone in office today that would target the central bank, that would target the deep state, that would target all these people. And they thought, okay, this person's coming in, no problem. We can handle it. They never expected Trump to contradict the Fed. They never expected Trump to contradict the news, to contradict everything that they put out there from the very beginning. All the propaganda that we've been seeing. And now what is happening is the economy is deteriorating very, very quickly. Trump is pointing the finger at the Fed, at what has been going on for a very long time, and placing the blame where it should be placed. And this is all being done on purpose. If we go to the level of the everyday person, we can see exactly what is happening with the rates. As the rates move up, things start to break down. I know the central bank right now, they're trying to explain away how rates don't affect the economy at all. Remember, this is not a free market where rates are allowed to do whatever they want. The Fed is controlling it because if they just let the free market go, what would happen? Everything would implode. This is why they have to keep the rates at zero or out in Europe in the negative territory. But if we look at what is happening with the everyday person, and we look what's happening with automobile dealerships, like AutoNation, for instance, they're one of the largest auto retailers in the U.S., with about 242 new vehicle dealerships, selling about 33 brands, including Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, and Ford, GM, Chrysler, the rest. And what they are seeing right now is they're seeing a drop in new car sales. And for many customers that are visiting the dealerships, they're saying, first of all, the prices of vehicles, it's way too high. With rising interest rates, it's pushing them out of the market, and they're rejecting it now. They're saying, I'm not doing this. So they're turning towards used vehicles. Now, people say, well, what's the big deal? They're going towards used vehicles. Remember, this is going to affect manufacturing. And remember, in the past, when Obama was president, they used channel stuffing to make it look like manufacturing was still okay here in the United States. What is happening here is that people are rejecting the economy. They're rejecting the rates. They're rejecting the high prices. They're rejecting everything about the economy. Yes, Trump is out there, and this is part of the plan. We need to remember this. Every time you hear jobs are better, things are better, this is all being done on purpose. He had to create this illusion and put it out there so the mainstream media, the deep state, the central banks couldn't use it against him. Remember what I said in the beginning. They never went up with someone who would contradict everything that they were saying. Now, in the beginning, remember, they were using the idea that Trump is going to kill the economy. Remember, the central bank, the deep state, the mainstream media, it was planned. They were going to bring down the economy, and whatever Trump does, they were going to blame it on him. They were going to wait, say, a year or so until he was really in there as president, unless they got rid of him somehow, and then they would start, pointing the finger at him. Well, he turned things around. They didn't expect this. And he started to contradict the Fed at the same exact time. They didn't expect that either. And this confused them. Now what do? He has this economy that's doing really, really well. How do we blame him? Because if we start blaming him, he's going to bring up, just like he's been doing if you're looking at his tweets, he brings up the past. He shows people what really has been going on. He shows them the truth. And we'll be going into that a little bit later in the next report. But what is happening here is that they're trying to counter what he's saying. And the Fed right now, former Fed officials, Yellen, Bernanke, Volcker, you name it, they're out there and they're trying to figure out a way to counter what he's doing. Now, Yellen is out there. She is saying that the Federal Reserve is looking at the debt problem. And the United States is taking on too much debt right now. Whoa, hold on a second. All of a sudden, the United States is taking on too much debt. Now, if we go back in time to 1913 or so, or actually all the way back to George Washington, all the way up to 2008, the United States put on $10 trillion worth of debt. From 2008 to 2016, during Obama's reign, we added another $8 trillion within 8 years. So from George Washington all the way up to Obama, we put around roughly $9 to $10 trillion. And then from 2008 up to 2016, Obama, within that short period of time, put $8 trillion worth of debt onto the books of the United States, where the people are responsible. Now the Fed is saying that the United States is taking on too much debt. Where were they during Obama? Where were they before that? I mean, because Trump is in office and he put on another $3 trillion, all of a sudden now it's too much debt. We had too much debt already. This is a fact. And this is the debt that's being reported to us. Unfunded liabilities and everything is like something like over $200 trillion. They're saying it can't be sustained right now. So they're trying to use the argument that Trump put on all this debt and it cannot be sustained and the economy is going to collapse because of it. Well, we need to remember the Fed's entire business model revolves around debt, putting countries into debt. And Trump didn't add all this debt. He only added $3 trillion. Everybody else added $18 trillion. The difference this time is that the $3 trillion, the $5 trillion, the $10 trillion that's going to be added is being put there on purpose to bring down the central bank. Have the central bank raise the rates, put the country further into debt, contradict the Fed at the same time, and who is responsible? Because now you have the ability to go back in time and show what the central bank has done. To take it a step forward, you can also say, listen, we didn't even know we had this amount of debt once you start auditing the Fed. And then the blame is right on the Fed. The Fed is trapped. They're trying to figure a way out of this. Blaming Trump for his economic policies, that's not going to work. That's why you don't hear that much of it anymore. They're trying to figure out a way to navigate around this. They were never up against someone who would counter their arguments, go back to the past and show them what they've done. And as we move forward and the economy breaks down, I'm expecting Trump to just do that. Go back in time. When they start saying that he's putting on too much debt, he's going to say Obama put $8 trillion worth of debt. Nobody said a word. Everything was great. And he's going to go all the way back in time to show everything that was done all the way back in time by the Federal Reserve. History is Trump's weapon against these individuals, against all of these individuals. And it can be used over and over again. And they can't do anything about it. They're trapped. And once you start looking into the books of the Federal Reserve, of the IMF, of the other central banks, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find corruption, crimes, things that didn't adhere to the mandate of the Federal Reserve, which they did outside of the mandate. And this is going to bring down the Federal